Picture this, a grand palace room in 17th century France. Gilded mirrors reflect candlelight. Silk rustles. Pearls glint on powdered necks. But beneath all the glamour, something reeks. Royal women, icons of elegance, often harbored filthy secrets under their satin gowns. Their bodies went unwashed for weeks. Not for lack of access, but because bathing was thought to be dangerous. Doctors and philosophers at the time warned that water could open the pores, allowing illness to enter. Royal women, terrified of falling ill, avoided water like the plague, literally. Instead, they doused themselves in layer after layer of perfume, trying to mask the inevitable, the smell of sweat, rot, and unwashed flesh. Queen Elizabeth I, famed for her flawless white skin, reportedly bathed once a month, whether she needed it or not. Marie Antoinette, fashion icon of Versailles, would go days smelling of rosewater and musk, but not of soap. And beneath those towering wigs, lice, fleas, and even maggots sometimes made their home there. Yet these women were admired, painted, and worshipped. No one dared mention the smell. It's a twisted irony: the higher you climbed in the social ladder, the less likely you were to wash. While peasants bathed in rivers, queens masked filth with lace. This is just one of 5 revolting hygiene habits that royal women embraced. And as we descend deeper into history, you'll see, beauty was only skin deep, sometimes horrifyingly so. Now imagine you're a royal lady in the 16th century. You've just given birth, no anesthesia, no sterilized tools, and the midwife is wiping her hands on the same apron she used hours ago. The ordeal doesn't end there. Postnatal care for royal women was often more dangerous than the birth itself. Doctors believed fresh air could chill the womb, so new mothers were sealed in dark, stuffy chambers for weeks, with curtains drawn, fireplaces roaring, and barely any ventilation. They sweated through silk sheets soaked with blood, sweat, and fluids, unable to bathe or even change linens regularly. The belief? That the heat would purge the body of lingering humors. Instead, it bred infection. For women like Catherine de' Medici or Anne of Austria, surviving childbirth was just the first battle. They were kept in confinement, breathing air thick with the stench of decay, surrounded by herbal bundles meant to purify the room but doing little to mask the rot. Doctors would bleed these women, yes, drain their blood, to balance the humors, weakening them further. They were forbidden cold water, forbidden light, and sometimes even forbidden conversation. Whispered prayers replaced proper medical care. The pain, isolation, and risk of deadly infections were brushed aside, all for the sake of superstition disguised as medicine. These women were queens, duchesses, empresses, yet they lay helpless, victims of an era that prized appearance over health, tradition over truth. In many cases, their babies died within days. Others died themselves, and their rooms would be aired out only after the stench became unbearable. And yet, their portraits showed glowing mothers holding cherubic infants, no hint of the hell behind those painted smiles. Let's now step into the world of royal cosmetics, a world where beauty quite literally killed. In the courts of Europe, especially during the Renaissance and Baroque periods, pale skin was everything. It signified nobility, delicacy, and the luxury of staying indoors. To achieve this ethereal look, royal women painted their faces with Venetian cerose, a compound made of white lead. Day after day, they slathered it on, unaware that it was slowly poisoning them. Their skin became brittle, cracked, and sore, but instead of stopping, they added more layers to mask the damage, unknowingly accelerating their own decline. Their gums bled, their hair fell out, and their teeth blackened. But a deathly pallor was still considered alluring. Queen Elizabeth I was one of the most famous users of lead-based makeup. By the end of her life, her face was covered in lesions beneath the mask of cerose, and she had lost most of her hair. But the fear of appearing old or flawed in public outweighed the agony. The regime didn't end there. They accentuated their lips and cheeks with rouge made from cinnabar, a mercury-based mineral. Mercury. Imagine painting it on your skin every day. The side effects included trembling hands, mood swings, hallucinations, and eventually, organ failure. But a flush of color was worth the risk. And then came the eye treatments. Belladonna drops to dilate the pupils for that wide-eyed look, except belladonna is a deadly poison, and prolonged use could lead to blindness. In the mirror, they looked like porcelain dolls. In reality, they were suffering, slowly poisoned by their own reflection. This was not vanity. This was survival, because beauty was power, and looking anything less than radiant could cost a queen her influence, her reputation, or even her throne. Now, let's talk about royal undergarments, or more accurately, the lack of them. For much of history, royal women didn't wear underwear as we understand it today. In fact, before the 19th century, drawers or panties were considered improper for women, especially among the elite. Royal ladies wore layers of skirts, petticoats, and elaborate gowns, but nothing beneath them to protect their most intimate areas. Combine that with heavy, non-breathable fabrics, rarely washed underlayers, and limited access to running water, and you had the perfect environment for infections. What's worse, during their menstrual cycles, royal women used cloth rags, if they used anything at all. There were no sanitary products, no hygiene protocols, and often, no privacy. They simply bled into their garments, which were already rarely cleaned. The result? Persistent odor, skin irritations, and widespread discomfort. Doctors of the time, bound by superstition rather than science, even discouraged bathing during menstruation, believing it could unsettle the humors or open the body to corruption. This only worsened the situation. And still, these women had to maintain court appearances, attend public ceremonies, and host foreign dignitaries, smiling, poised, and radiant, while battling a private storm of discomfort and shame. Adding insult to injury, many royal courts had rigid restrictions on how and when a woman could excuse herself for hygiene purposes. Sometimes, the queen couldn't even leave the room without approval from male courtiers. Even in their private chambers, there were always servants, attendants, and maids present. Privacy was a privilege almost no royal woman had. So, their hygiene, or lack thereof, was not just a matter of discomfort. It was a political problem, wrapped in silks and powdered in perfumes, hidden beneath layers of etiquette and expectation. At the very top of this unsettling list is one of the most horrifying and rarely discussed practices in royal hygiene: the reuse of menstrual cloths, sometimes even shared among court women or passed down from mother to daughter. Before disposable products, aristocratic women relied on thick strips of cloth or handmade pads fashioned from linen, wool, or even animal skin. But due to the taboo nature of menstruation and the absence of proper sanitation, these cloths were often not washed thoroughly, or at all. In some courts, especially during the 16th to 18th centuries, women were discouraged from hanging menstrual cloths in public view to dry, as it was seen as unseemly or vulgar. As a result, damp rags were hidden under beds, in drawers, or even reused while still moist. The combination of blood, moisture, and warmth created the perfect breeding ground for bacteria, leading to infections ranging from skin rashes to life-threatening sepsis. Some royal women, constrained by corsets and heavy gowns, wore the same cloths for multiple days, unable to change discreetly during long formal events or travel. In more remote or superstitious courts, these rags were kept as tokens or burned in ritualistic practices, believed to preserve youth or ward off illness. Disturbingly, there are even accounts from royal attendants noting the foul smell emanating from chambers where menstruating women rested, a stench masked only by heavy perfume or incense. These solutions did nothing to curb the risk of infection, and in many cases, only worsened the problem by trapping bacteria closer to the skin. Women developed chronic pelvic inflammation, unexplained fevers, and foul discharge, conditions medical historians now attribute to unsanitary menstrual care. Yet in royal courts obsessed with appearance, discomfort and disease were suffered in silence. It was a hidden horror behind gilded mirrors and velvet curtains, an unspoken price of nobility that claimed the health and lives of countless women through generations. These disturbing practices reveal a hidden truth behind the opulence of royal life, one where appearances were everything, and pain, discomfort, and even slow death were acceptable costs in the pursuit of beauty, status, and social order. Beneath the layers of silk and jewels, royal women endured a reality far more grim than fairy tales suggest. Their hygiene wasn't just lacking, it was shaped by superstition, pressure, and ignorance, trapping them in rituals that harmed more than helped. In the end, their gilded cages were not only physical, but deeply personal, etched into the daily routines of their most intimate selves.